It's just about 9 minutes now before the hour of 2 o'clock, and I'm very glad to have in the studio the Honorable Nigel Carty. Good afternoon, Minister Carty. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Juni. I'm very well, thank you.
All right. Before we go any further, just give us a little update of your the portfolios that you now hold, because I know you've taken on agriculture and some others, but just for the information of the public, give us the full scope of your portfolio, sir.
Right. Thank you very much, Juni. I'm glad for the opportunity. Let me say good afternoon to all the persons listening via the radio and the internet. I have held the post previously, the Ministry of Education and Information, and recently I've had added to my portfolio one other ministry, which is Agriculture, Marine Resources and Cooperatives. It's something I think I enjoy doing and will enjoy doing in the future. Given my background as a countryman, having been brought up on the farms, looking after cattle and animals and so forth, and working in the agricultural fields and so forth. So it's something with which I think I will have a very strong connection going forward as I try to discharge my duties and responsibilities as Minister of Agriculture.
All right. Now, the Bastia High School, I know they're having the shift system. Could you bring us up to date with what's happening there, first of all?
Right. Thank you very much, Juni. Again, I was here a couple of weeks ago to give members of the public an update on the Bastia High School. I think persons are aware that we have had to abandon the Western campus given we had some challenges there with the mold, etc. And there was also some concerns with the plumbing. And so we have now restricted ourselves to the use of the Eastern campus, and we're operating on a shift system there. Those persons, students, teachers, parents who are being affected would be very well aware. There may be others who are not so aware. So I want to say to members of the wider public that we have two shifts operating at the Bastia High School on the Eastern Campus. One shift operating from 7:30 to 12 o'clock, and the other shift from 12:30 down until 5 p.m. I just want to say to members of the public how appreciative we are of the teachers' efforts in this regard, because we understand many of them are having to get to work at 7:30 and leaving work at 5 o'clock or thereafter. And this means that they're spending an enormous amount of time away from home, away from their families, and some of them have kids, husbands, families to look after, and other business to take care of. So we are highly appreciative of the commitment they have shown to ensure that the boys and girls can continue to get their education, which is what they deserve very much. On the Eastern Campus, to get it in a state of operation, we have had to do significant work on the bathroom for both the students and the teachers. We've also had to ensure that we had labs on that side properly cleaned out, and some work on this is still being done. We are about to start, in fact should have started, the construction of a wooden building to house 6 classes, and one other building which is going to house the office of the principal and her assistant. This work should be completed over the next 2 months or so, if not sooner. We hope sooner, but given the kind of construction that is ongoing, we advise that it can take almost 2 months to complete. But when these 6 classrooms are finished, it will help us to overcome the difficulty of having to have a shift system, so that school can return from the regular 8:30 to 3:30. But in the interim, we are seeing what we can do to facilitate the teachers and the students, because at my meeting with the teachers last week, we understand that it is a very challenging situation to have been placed in, and so we are wanting to see how we can accommodate the teachers and students so that we can have classes within the regular hours as soon as possible. On the Western Campus, as I said, that has been abandoned for the time being. We have started a full construction and reconstruction or renovation on the physics lab, the chemistry lab, and the boys' bathroom. Work has been done on the sewage systems in all areas of that campus, and we are hoping as well to have major works done to the main building and the auditorium. During the course of last week and the week before, we had an engineering consultant taking a good look at the physical structure on the Western campus to see what recommendations can come forward to ensure that we can do a full-scale remodeling and renovation of the Western campus. And this is a longer-term project. We are hoping that the project could be completed in time for the new school year starting September 2013. So it's really important that we get the additional accommodation on the Eastern campus, which is to finalize the construction of a 6-classroom block on the Eastern campus to accommodate all students during regular hours of school. That is it on the Basti High School for the time being.
Now, how is everybody coping with this new arrangement? The teachers, the parents, and the students?
I think the teachers who understand what the circumstances are. When I met with them during the course of last week, there were teachers who were desirous of having a new arrangement whereby we can utilize space outside of the school for the time being to ensure that we revert to an 8:30 to 3:30 modus operandi for the school. There are those teachers, though, who are saying we don't like to be spread across different spaces. We don't want for some students to be here at the Basti High School, some to be at the park, or some to be at the Anglican schoolroom, or some to be at the Washington Archibald High School. We would prefer for all of us to be in one place. And so there are some who have that opinion. But, of course, they're all admitting to the fact that it is a challenging situation for them to be having to showing up to school at 7:30 and leaving at 5. And there are some persons, teachers, who are impacted even more so by the fact that they're having classes starting very early in the morning and having classes finishing late in the afternoon. And there are about 50% of them, or a little less, a little more, give and take, who feel somewhat comfortable by the fact that they're starting classes fairly late in the day and finishing classes before 5 o'clock. So the situation affects some teachers more than others, and others are coping better, others are not coping so well. So we really are hoping to have this wooden construction done in short order so that we can relieve all of them of that particular situation.
Now, is this scenario going to continue till, say, the end of the school year, or you're hoping, I know they're doing work to renovate and reconstruct, etc. How long? What's the time frame for all of this?
Right, the time frame for the construction of the wooden building, which would help to accommodate all the students comfortably, or at least would allow us to go back to the 8:30 to 3:30 modus operandi, should be finished, we are told, within about 6 weeks to 2 months. So once that is done, we can have a situation whereby students and teachers can expect to come to school at 8:30 and leave at 3:30 if that is what they would wish to do. So we are hoping that within 6 weeks to 8 weeks, we can have a completely new situation as it pertains to the hours of school and the doing away with the shift system at the Basti High School.
Okay. Now, let's move on a little bit from education and go to one of the new portfolios you've taken on, which is agriculture. What is the mindset? What is your mindset with respect to that?
Right. As I said, agriculture is something I feel very comfortable with, given my background, given where I come from, deep in the countryside, where we have been involved in agriculture for a very long time. And one of the things I had to do very early once I got into the position was to have met with the farmers from Sandy Point who have been affected by the debt for land swap. They are the members of the SPACS, SPACS, the Sandy Point Agricultural Cooperative Society. And we were able to meet with them, and the Prime Minister was in fact the host of the first meeting which we had, and he was able to thoroughly go through what the purpose of the debt to land swap was, and he was basically attentive to their concerns, and we took copious notes. What the farmers were saying was this really, that they were occupying lands that they're hoping to have access to going forward. In the first instance, they would want a lease arrangement on the lands that they now occupy because they don't have any proper or legal document that would facilitate them going forward. And so they're asking for an accommodation in the form of a lease going forward. I think they're also very alive to the notion that they as farmers can become land owners, and in fact they have asked whether in the future there can be an accommodation for them to be able to purchase the land. And that is something that we have taken very seriously on board, and we would see how we can work with them going forward. The farmers are indicating that they are wanting to get into agriculture in a very big way. Many of them have been in farming for quite a long time. Some of them have come on board recently as farmers. But they all seem to be of the view that they can make an impact on food security and on agricultural production in St. Kitts and Nevis, particularly if they were to work together as a team, so that they can all farm from the same plan, from the same handbook really, to ensure that there is the output of critical food produce for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Secondly, I think it's important that members of the public become aware that my ministry has taken a decision to assist small farmers farming on plots 3 to 5 acres of land who are very small, just getting off the ground, in preparing their land free of cost. One of the complaints I've had since taking office as the Minister of Agriculture is from young farmers who are saying, well, I am trying to get off the ground, I am trying to make it in farming, but I have some difficulty in getting off the ground, even with the land preparation. So we have identified $50,000 in the first instance to assist small farmers in doing land preparation, doing the harrowing and the plowing. And we'll also look at how we can help to provide some inputs, seedlings and so forth, seeds for some of these farmers to get off the ground. This is the way we believe we are going to impact the wider community by ensuring that farmers can produce the kind of foods that we expect them to produce, and also over time to be able to produce them at a rate that ordinary people can buy. Because one of the dilemmas that we have is that the produce from our local farmers is not always the cheapest. And while we know it is the best, in people's own minds, when people really have to make their dollar go a long way, sometimes they have to make the decision between buying fresh local produce and buying produce that is cheaper, that comes from elsewhere. And so we are hoping to make an impact by bringing more people on board, by facilitating their entry into farming, by doing land preparation, and by hopefully providing seedlings and other inputs that they can get off the ground in farming with.
All right, I have somebody who has just sent an email under the name pseudonym, or rather under the pseudonym Frustrated. JL asked the Minister of Agriculture, when will the matter pertaining to sugar workers who were allowed to leave the industry before it closed due to financial burdens get their due severance payment as promised before they left SSMC? Former Minister Liburd did nothing. Former Minister Harris represented his constituents well on this matter, and it's about time that the other workers from the other 7 constituencies get their hard-earned money and not just the $1,500 that was paid to them.
Right. This is a very difficult question, Juni, for the very obvious reason that by law, severance pay really relates to persons who have been severed from an industry, a place of work, an organization, an institution. Persons who would have left the SSMC, the sugar industry, in advance of the closure, which happened in 2005, really may not be able to make a very strong case for severance pay. It's a matter that we have looked at long and hard, and I think we're still wondering what is the best way forward, given that people feel a very strong sense of entitlement. I spoke with a gentleman from my own village around the time that the sugar industry was closing. He had left the sugar industry some 20 years prior to 2005. He is actually in his 90s right now, about 95, 96. And when I spoke with him, he was at a loss to understand why it is that he had worked in the industry for almost 50 years, if not more, and at the closure of the industry, he wasn't entitled to severance pay. And I was at pains to indicate to him that perhaps there is some other thing that we can do to give all those persons who had worked so long and hard in the industry something that makes them feel that they have earned something after having worked so long. But I don't think that severance pay is the concept which gives coverage to that idea. Because severance pay means if you're working at a factory on the industrial estate, for example, or you're working with the SSMC, or you're working with a supermarket, and that place of employment closes down, and you have to be severed, then you have certain entitlements. If you leave before, although you would have worked so long and hard, then there's nothing called severance pay that will be applicable to you. But perhaps we can look at something else which can give people the comfort that we recognize their worth, their value, and their hard work. The same argument arises in relation to people who are working on the industrial estate right now. Many of the young ladies there work for 20 and 25 years. And after having worked for 25 years, if they make a decision on their own to find other employment or to travel abroad, to live, to migrate, after having worked 25 years at that one place, having given many years of hard work, there's nothing for them to turn to. And that is why the government has decided that we would want to implement a scheme where persons who have worked on the industrial estate for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever the specifics are going to be eventually, to be given some form of gratuity, so that you don't have to wait until the place closes down or until somebody terminates you because they're doing some restructuring of the business. In that case, they make you redundant. We are saying that after having worked for 15, 20, 25 years with an organization, you should be free to leave, and having left, to gain some kind of gratuitous payment. This is the way I think we're going to have to look to in dealing with members who have worked in the sugar industry for so many, many years and have not gotten anything of a severance pay, because the Severance Pay Act doesn't allow for us to deal with those matters in that way. We're going to have to design something of a gratuitous package that they can be entitled to in the future.
Let me ask you something, Minister Carty. Do sugar workers, former sugar workers, SSMC, are they still owed any monies at all, or what because you get a sense that some of them still feel that they're owed money?
Yes, there are some of them who still feel that they're owed money. I can tell you that the sugar workers have been paid handsomely. They were able to get a package which was designed by the union as an agreement between the union and the SSMC back in the 1960s or early 1970s. That package was better than what was offered under the Severance Pay Act, or the Severance Pay Act, I can call it that, but it's called the Protection of Employment Act. The Protection of Employment Act gave a kind of package which didn't really amount to the kind of monies that workers would have earned under the agreement that was between the SSMC and the trades union. And so we are very confident that persons got paid handsomely. Of course, there were persons who have gotten over $100,000 because of the time they worked and based upon the kind of income that they were making, because the amount of payment you got was related to the amount of income which you were receiving. And there were others who didn't get as much. They got $20,000, $15,000, $30,000, and for some reason they were not satisfied. But I believe at the end of the day, the government did what was the right thing. We gave them the better of two packages which were available: a package available under the Severance Payment Act and a package available under an agreement between the SSMC and the trades union. And of course, there were persons who had not worked long enough to have earned the kinds of benefits they would have liked to make, and there were persons who had left the industry some years before the closure, and they felt that they were left out of the deal. And we understand that. We understand that people were feeling very much disaffected by the fact that having left the industry before it closed, they were not entitled to the large sums which other persons who stayed until the end would have received.
All right, it's just about 11 minutes after 2 o'clock. We're going to take just a very short commercial break. Minister Carty, when I come back, I want to ask you, we're going to go a little bit more political.
Sure.
If
sure.
you will.
We can accommodate that.
Okay. We're going to do that when we come back at just about 11 minutes after 2. Just a very, very short commercial break. Then we come back with Minister Carty.
From your energy, well, we got the right remedy. Run go tell Beverly and Kenny, say a full throttle, we got for everybody. Well, you talking and gear one and nothing nah happen. Simba will tell you if you hold a full throttle. Your girlfriend a wait and nothing nah happen. Simba will tell you go hold a full throttle. You yes, you full throttle. 16 ounce of raw energy. We have different flavors and each one tastes fine. Distributed by Sankey's Bottling Company.
Convenience and timing are always important when it comes to a gas station. And that's why the Westside Service Center continues to be the preferred choice of motorists in St. Kitts. Located on the island's main road at Buckley's, Westside Service Center offers you more than gas, diesel, and other petroleum products. Because their friendly and helpful representatives are always ready to fill you up with a full supply of customer service. At Westside Service Center, they offer other products such as sodas, water, ice, beer, cooking gas, Shell lubricants, coolers for rent, and much, much more. And topping up your cell phone is easy at Westside Service Center. So for your next gas stop, make it Westside Service Center, located at Buckley's. You can also reach us at 465-2165. Remember, when it comes to gas, every time it's Westside.
And we welcome you back to Issues for today, Monday, February 18th, 2013. My guest, the Honorable Nigel Carty, Minister of Education, Information, Agriculture, etc. Now, Minister Carty, I want to ask you your opinion on the motion of no confidence, whether it should come before the budget or after the budget. We had the Honorable Master Liburd in last week, and she was giving her reasons why the motion of no confidence should come after the debate on the budget. We've had certain private sector entities come out and say that they want the motion of no confidence addressed. We had the Chamber, St. Kitts Nevis Industry of Chamber and Commerce. We've had the St. Kitts Evangelical Association, the Christian Council, Charles Wilkin represents the Bar Association. He came out and made the same statements. And we've had similar sentiments echoed by Dr. Harris and Sam Conda, etc. What is your view, and how do you respond to what has been said in the public domain?
Right. Thank you very much, Juni. I think this is an excellent question. I think this is one of the issues that is very much alive in the community at this point in time. Well, of course, it's not surprising, the position which two of my former colleagues have taken. You mentioned Dr. Harris, you mentioned Sam Conda. Their position, I think, is very clear, and that is no surprise to anybody in the country at this time. Let me start by saying that this country has had the tradition of a very rich democracy for very many years. The party I'm part of and serve is an organization that has always believed in democracy, the right of people to express their views and opinions. And I think that we have made tremendous gains over the last 17 years since this party has been in office to strengthening and buttressing that democracy, really giving people the right and the freedom to speak, to express themselves exactly how they want to express themselves. The only thing we ask is that people express themselves respectfully and that people have respect for the law, which is to ensure that they do not in any way tread on people's rights, even as they attempt to express themselves on any matter, political or otherwise, in the country. We recognize that this country is also made up of various groups and groupings of people. Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the Bar Association, the Christian Council, Evangelical Association. And in my view, these are organizations which, although to a large extent have been regarded as organizations that should be apolitical, that is non-political, we're human beings. And those organizations have people who believe in the politics one way or the other. So it's not surprising to me the stance that some of these organizations have taken. And what is clear from my own understanding is that although when these organizations sit as a group, people take different positions around the table, at the end of the day, they come to a consensus and they make a statement one way or the other. What I would say in continuing, June, is that the motion of no confidence is a constitutional tool. The Constitution gives the right to any elected member of Parliament to bring a motion of no confidence. And we respect people's constitutional rights. at the same time, we ask for other people's constitutional rights to be respected. The government has certain constitutional rights and obligations. The government believes at this time that it is critically important, given the importance of a budget, for a budget to be discussed and approved before we move into the consideration of the motion of no confidence. There is a gentleman called, or in fact, we refer to an author called Erskine May, the foremost authority on constitutional matters and parliamentary matters. And I've heard a lot of people make reference to his writings. He has said, as the foremost authority on these matters, that the government, when faced with a motion of no confidence, has the right to consider any matter which is expedient for itself, to be able to consider that before it moves to have the motion of no confidence slated. I believe, therefore, that there can be nothing more important, more urgent, more expedient than a budget that will provide wages for police officers who are protectors of the law, for teachers, for nurses who are civil servants on whom our nation depends, for public sector workers generally, the funds that will be necessary to ensure that there's medicine at all of our hospitals and clinics, the money that is ensured or that is put forward to ensure that people can begin or can in fact continue to operate in the way they're expected to operate. And therefore I think that it's highly irresponsible for persons to be trying to push people into a corner without being able to have this important matter heard. What I think has complicated matters is that we have now been involved in some court battles whereby the Honorable Sam Conda has teamed up with the Honorable member for St. Christopher 5, Sean Richards, to attempt to undermine the law which has recently been passed. And more than that, the attempt in the court is basically to invalidate the appointment of the Attorney General. The Attorney General is an important, in fact, critical member of the Parliament, and if he is going to be involved in this kind of legal battle, I believe it stands to reason that these court matters will have to be dealt with before we can formally move forward to take the budget to the Parliament. So I just want to say that I'm very strongly of the conviction of two things. One, that the government does have the right to be able to make the case that the budget is a critically important matter that ought to come before the motion of no confidence. Number two, I am certain that the budget is needed to facilitate the smooth operation of the country at this time, so that we don't put ourselves into a more difficult position as a country than we ought to. There are people clearly who are believing that it is more politically beneficial to them to have the country pushed into a position where there is no budget, where there are no salaries, where there is no medicine, where there is no payment for police and teachers and doctors and lawyers and so on. And so I believe that we can stand very firmly on those two important principles.
All right. It's just about 20 minutes after 2 o'clock. I just want to ask you one more question before we open up the lines. There are a lot of people standing by ready to ask you some questions. The last time you were here, you were addressing the matter of Dr. Timothy Harris as the chairman of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. I think you had indicated then that he was being asked to step down, and that a special conference was being organized to deal with that matter. What's the latest on it?
Right. I thank you again, Juni. I think that Dr. Harris was being very obstructive in his operations, where he came to the party executive meetings attempting to prevent the executive from moving forward on important agenda items. But to cut a long story short, as we say, eventually the executive of the party took a decision to have a special conference at which matters pertaining to the disciplining of Dr. Harris can be dealt with. We have since received legal advice. I think we have a clear course that we're going to proceed along. We are waiting to have a certain date set for us to have that special conference. I suspect that at our next executive meeting, which comes up in not too long, we will be able to make a decision on a final date and have that matter heard at a special conference. And in addition to the executive of the party taking a decision to have this special conference, we have had 6 branches of the Labour Party writing independently to indicate that they would want a special conference to have such a matter heard and other matters pertinent to the politics within the party and so forth. So I suspect that in a short few weeks we are going to have a date set and the matter determined at a special conference of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party.
What about the Honourable Sam Conder? We've heard that both the Honourable Sam Conder and Dr. Timothy Harris will be running as independent. We've heard that. We haven't heard it from them, but we've heard their constituents saying this. There was a drive-through in my constituency less than a week ago where Labour supporters and members of constituency number 3 were driving through my village in Boyds saying that a vote for Sam is a vote for Pam. And so is there a move to also ease Sam Conder out of the party?
Well, I think that it became very clear, particularly when the Honourable Sam Conder collaborated with the Honourable Sean Richards to put a motion in the court against the Labour Party administration that he was clearly on a track towards working with the People's Action Movement. And so there's no doubt in the minds of people who have been looking at the situation, hoping that this wasn't really the intention of these members to work with the People's Action Movement. All of these doubts have now been clearly removed. And I think that people in these 2 constituencies and throughout the length and breadth of the country understand that a vote for the Honourable Sam Conder and a vote for the Honourable Timothy Harris are in fact votes for the People's Action Movement, against whom these 2 gentlemen have campaigned in the past against so vociferously. In fact, I remember very well a story told by the Honourable Sam Conder, where he was telling a story about the frog and the scorpion. He said that the scorpion was entreating and encouraging the frog to have him taken across a river. The frog wanted to get across. The scorpion was offering his help. The frog pleaded with the scorpion that, I don't believe I can accept your invitation, Mr. Scorpion, because I know your nature. Your nature is to sting, to bite, to kill. And although you have been encouraging me and inviting me, I am very much in doubt as to whether I should accept. Eventually the scorpion prevailed upon the frog, and so the frog hopped onto the scorpion's back, and away they went across the river. As they were nearing the shore, on the other side of the river, the frog was taken aback completely when the scorpion turned around and stung the frog and killed him. This is a story I was told by the Honourable Sam Conder, and he was making reference to the People's Action Movement. He says this is their very nature. What we know of them is their nature. They cannot change. They will not change. And so it is most surprising to see how the Honourable Sam Conder and in fact the Honourable Timothy Harris can now get into bed with the People's Action Movement. I think that this has really taken Labour Party supporters by surprise in a big way.
So in any upcoming elections, we'll be seeing new candidates for the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party.
You certainly will be seeing new candidates for the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, not only in those 2 constituencies, but perhaps in other places as well. I mean, we are about putting a competent, attractive slate of candidates to the electorate. We believe that the people of this country deserve the very best that this country has to offer, and we have been looking keenly at some young, bright people. We want women to be included, and if they would step forward, we would want to ensure that they have a good chance of being selected by the party to be part of the platform, because the issues that confront us as a people require that we have young people, not so young people, that we have men and women of all professions really putting their heads together to attempt to resolve the issues that we face at this time.
All right, it's 27 minutes after 2. The phone lines have been going wild from since you came in. So I'm going to take a few calls and get your response. Good afternoon, caller. Thanks for waiting. You're on Issues with the Honorable Nigel Carty.
Good afternoon, Honorable Carty.
Good afternoon, sir.
And good afternoon, Big L.
Good afternoon, Reggie.
I have 2 questions of importance. I was listening to the program with intent, and I remember once upon a time a government was formed, PAM NRP, but the last election, it seemed like the table had turned around. Labour NRP seemed to be affiliated, linked up with the election. So that is something that we still need to know what we are saying when we are saying what we are saying, when we are saying and who we are saying it to. So that's round 1. Round 2, as the Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Carty, I still have some ill feeling about the closure of the sugar industry. Not that we didn't have to, because if you listen, the statistics that the Minister of Finance were facing annually in the harvesting, it was a losing situation. So there was a compulsory to close it. But one of the parts that I and other people don't understand is before the closure, there were some workers who had put in years. Like I have a very dear friend, Mr. Hercules in Mansion, on a tractor driver for 55 years, was sent to him just before the closure. And when they start paying the money, they just gave him $1,500. My understanding is you will be paid according to the years you put in. That's how you're supposed to get back something. And up to now, some people are still not getting over that hurt that they are encountering. I'll listen off here on your opinion on what you think about that and what can be done to heal that sore that's hurting people.
All right, thank you so much. Let's take another call while the Minister takes note of that. Good afternoon, you're on the air.
Juni, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
A couple of questions for the Minister.
Sure, go ahead.
Number 1, why wasn't the budget hearing heard in December, since it is seemed to be so very important that it has to be heard, before this other bill? Number 2, the IPL and other organizations, strongly condemned, the situation in St. Kitts Nevis at the moment with the Prime Minister. Do Minister Carty think that all these people are wrong and the Prime Minister is right? And number 3, will Minister Carty be a candidate in the upcoming election? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Carty?
Thank you very much, callers. I want to start by responding to the first question asked. I think it was, well, I don't have to call the name because I think people know who the caller is. Let me get to the essential question that he asked, which was the situation pertaining to a gentleman, Mr. Hercules, whom he mentioned. Mr. Hercules was 72 years old when he was retired from the SSMC. He was 72, not 17. He was 72 years old. He may have retired from the SSMC in 2000 or somewhere close to 2000. Maybe 1999, maybe in 2001. But nonetheless, he was retired from the SSMC, the sugar industry, before the sugar industry closed. Again, Mr. Hercules was able to get all of the entitlements due to him at the time he retired from the SSMC. He got all of the entitlements he was due at the time he retired from the SSMC, having worked some 55 years in the industry. Therefore, I would say again to members of the wider public that severance pay is not due to someone who has left an industry several years ago. A severance payment scheme has been set up for persons who are being severed from an industry or an institution or an organization that is closing down while they are yet working with the organization. So I think that there is this stubborn issue in the public domain among some persons who seem not to have any regard for the meaning of a Severance Payment Act. The act was intended to give benefits to persons who were working with an organization at the time the organization closed. In Mr. Hercules' case, he retired from the industry some 5 to 6 years before the industry closed, and therefore one cannot contemplate reasonably a severance payment plan for him. What I did say earlier, though, is that for persons who have worked in the sugar industry for significant amounts of time, the government can devise a gratuitous payment plan for such persons if, on considering all things, those persons would have given many years of service and wouldn't have gotten any proper entitlement upon their retirement from the service. Or, in some person's case, they basically went abroad. They resigned and went abroad. And so I think that there's still room for us to entertain those kinds of discussions, but we really cannot apply a severance payment plan to persons who had not been working with an organization at the time the organization closed or collapsed. So that must be made absolutely clear. The second question was really in relation to why the budget had not been heard in December. Again, this is a political matter. At the time we began to discuss, let me first of all say that we began the budget planning process in about August or September of 2012, when we had our economic discussion session at the Marriott Hotel, something we have been doing for the last several years. Out of that, we were able to distill the main points which were raised by members of all sectors of the society. And then we went into our estimates planning meeting in October or November of 2012. Out of that, we have put together a draft budget document. When we began to discuss these matters, in fact, I remember the very day that we had begun to discuss the matter or prepared to discuss the matter in Cabinet, both Minister Conda and Minister Harris were absent from the Cabinet. In fact, both gentlemen came into the Cabinet, and having seen the budget documents on the table, they took their documents and left. We had some discussions, but we did not complete those discussions. The following Monday, a full discussion of the matter, given that we had not had the benefit of these two members' input. But again, those members were absent. We are now speculating that that was deliberate on their part, to not be part of the budget discussions at the Cabinet, so that one could hear their views and opinions and so forth, with a view to moving the budget process forward. In our view, in our humble view, it was deliberate on their part to have been absent. And so, when the budget discussions or debates really came, we thought that we could not proceed without having a discussion with these two members of the Cabinet, given that they have been making this claim, and very falsely so, that Cabinet has been taking decisions of which they're not aware. That is a false statement that they have made time and time again.
So are you saying that both former Cabinet colleagues, when it came down to the business of getting the budget presented, were absent? They absented themselves?
They were, in my view, they absented themselves and absented themselves deliberately. Because in my view, they were already on a path to do whatever they wanted to do. They were present at the Estimates Committee meetings, which were held in October or early November. Their views were taken on board and so forth. But in my view, they did not want to be part of a Cabinet discussion where these matters were being discussed, because they had already had other ideas by that time.
Okay.
And so we halted the process to give them a chance to become involved in the process again and again. And after 2 or 3 weeks of attempting to do that, we saw what happened.
All right. Let's take some more calls here from our listeners. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, President, good afternoon.
Same to you, my bro.
Yeah. Mr. Carty, just while you finish off, that is not really what I'm calling for, but are you telling the general public that the estimate and the budget was not printed already? statement that you make there?
Well, I know that we had put the budget documents together and we were about to start the printing process. When we found out that we basically didn't have the cooperation of the two colleagues, we thought we would put the process on halt and see if we could resolve the issues before we went forward.
Okay, thanks. Here my question in. You said earlier that the chamber is too political, right?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, sorry. Sorry if you did.
I said all of these organizations have people who have their political opinions one way or the other.
Okay.
Some of them support the government, some of them support the opposition. At the end of the day, we're all human beings and we have our political views.
Yeah, thanks for the correction, right? Was there not the same thing in 1993? The same organization with the political background and so on? Former Agriculture Minister Harris always said that he's trying to get more money for the agricultural farmers, right? Now you're saying that you're going to help those new farmers and so on. Where are you going to get that money from that Harris couldn't get earlier? Number 3, don't you think the situation at the Bastille High School, don't you think that if you all were spending more time not fighting, the situation will have been much better than how it is at this moment? Because when the general public start hearing about it, it was 9 months that went before. So I think since last year, if work was started, the teachers then will have been at ease. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, caller. Before you answer that, let's take another call here because there are a lot of people hanging in. Good afternoon, you're on the air.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Liburd.
Yes.
Good afternoon to President Carty, Honorable Carty.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Carty, you said something about the sugar factory, and I think you're missing the point. Plenty, and I could tell you this. Persons are persons who work in the sugar industry. When the name it was SKSF. Could you remember the name of that?
Go ahead, ask your question, sir. I'll make your comment.
SKSF, the manager was Mr. Warren. When Mr. Bratcher, the Honorable Bratcher, took it over, the workers was remanded still to work, but they didn't get no payment because the name had changed to SSMC, which means the sugar factory became to the people of St. Kitts during of Mr. Bratcher ever fighting for the sugar factory. But now you all is coming around and saying people, if people leave early o'clock, they shouldn't get nothing. There is a book up there having everybody's name that work at the sugar factory. And I think you all should look in that book because I work up there as a sugar worker. I used to work here. And up to this moment, I'm not making any noise for money. But to see some of the people who just went and spent 2 years in this season and getting this amount of money, the people who were there with the SKSF and then SSMC. It is an embarrassing situation for the people of St. Kitts for how they was treated for the sugar money. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, caller. 465-6474, 465-0546. You want to?
Yes. The first question that came in a while ago, the caller basically asked where was going to get money from that Dr. Harris could not get. Mm-hmm. I am not aware of any money that Dr. Harris could not get. What I do know is that in a budgetary process, all considerations are on the table. The agricultural department must be given the requisite amount of resources to deal with its own responsibilities and to assist farmers. Education has to be taken care of. Health has to be taken care of. The security forces, police, defense force have to be taken care of. Public works, road repairs, all of these things have to be taken care of. So I believe that all members of the cabinet understand that as we make requests for financing for our various programs, that we will not always get all that we want. In fact, we have so many ideas that at times we wonder if at all we will ever have the resources to be able to finance our ideas. But this is what the budgetary process is all about. We can't always get what we want or what we think we need to do what we have to do. And so it's really a balancing act. No minister in the cabinet will ever get all the money that he wants to run his or her ministry. That is a simple fact of life. Just as no home will ever have all the money that they want to be able to give their children and all other people all that they want. So it's really a balancing act. The caller also raised a very important point. And the point he raised was one in relation to the diversion of people's attention and energies due to the infighting which was happening in the government, and therefore possibly causing the government to miss certain critical things that they'd had to do. And I want to agree with the call on that point, because we have spent an enormous amount of time dealing with the two colleagues who I am very convinced of was initially, from the beginning of the term, on a path towards undermining the government. And so while we were there trying to, work with people, trying to ensure that people were facilitated, clearly they were on a different path. And I believe that if these things had not been happening, we could have achieved a lot more. Even in relation to critical issues such as the reduction of the debt, we have had serious pushback from the colleagues who apparently wanted somebody to have, as part of their legacy, a high debt situation in the country. But we were able to prevail. We were able to do the necessary things that we had to do to move the debt of the country from almost 200% of GDP to now about 125% of GDP. And when the debt for land swap transaction would have been completed, we would be down to about 80 to 85% of GDP. That's moving in the right direction. And I believe that all members of the cabinet have now said that we are making quicker progress on a lot of these things because we are no longer fighting amongst ourselves. There's unity, there's maximum unity in the government at the level of the cabinet, and things are being done, transactions are being done much quicker and much more smoothly. And that is what I believe that the people of the country can look forward to in the future.
All right.
On the matter again of the severance pay, I want to say again for the last time that we can perhaps look at an arrangement for persons who have worked in the industry but stopped, whether they were able to retire properly or they resigned or they traveled abroad for whatever reason and never came back to the industry. Those people have to be treated differently. They cannot be looked at under a severance payment regime. A severance payment regime is for people who are in the industry at the time the industry closed, and therefore, having to sever them, you had to give them certain benefits for putting them out of work. Once you're putting people out of work, you have to provide them with some basic benefits. If you're left on your own, or you reach the age of retirement like 72, like Mr. Hercules, you can be entitled to a severance payment. You can be given some other gratuitous benefit for your years of service in the industry.
All right, we're really running out of time at 16 minutes now before the hour of 3 o'clock. Let's go back and take some more calls. Okay, we missed that caller, so let's try this one. Good afternoon, caller. Thanks for waiting. You're on Freedom FM's Issues.
Good afternoon. Hold on 1 second.
All right, let's try this call while we hold on there. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Mr. Liburd, and good afternoon to you, Minister, Mr.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Johnny. On Saturday, my daughter called me, tell me that something is wrong with her computer that the government gave to her. I do have a problem because I took it down this morning by Port Zante, where they have a company down there fixing them. And they charged me about $600 to fix some kind of thing on the computer. Now, I have a problem with that because the government bringing thousands of computers for children in this country. I think the government should find a local person or people to do that system here, or take it on the government role to keep the money in the country and to benefit the government and the students. Because I told my child, next time the computer broke down, I am not going to pay so much money to fix it. I think you all need, and next thing they're taking the parts them. I tell them I want my parts. It's a government computer, I need my parts in my hand. I'm paying you for what you put in it, give me back my takeout. They're telling me it ain't work, so when I tell them I'm going to have it, or there's going to be a problem. You all need to look into this. The school them need to look into it and tell the children and the parent them to please ask the people them for the parts because they'll take them and ship them out and make money. Something need to take serious steps because they are not local people and local need to get into that business. The government need to look into that, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, caller. Before you respond to that, Minister Carty, let's take this one as well. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Carty. I'm trying to find out when the first farmers will be getting their computers, because I keep hearing time and time again that they're going to get them. And up to this point in time, it's now February, and they haven't gotten them as yet.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, we have two computer-related questions. You want to quickly respond, Minister Carty?
Yes. I want to thank Johnny for his question and comments. And I think he made some very important points. One, the authorized service provider for some of these computers is a non-local person. When the ministry at the time was negotiating for the purchase of the computers, one of the elements of the discussion at the time, the agreement of the time, was to ensure that we had a certified service provider for the repair of the computers. At the time, there wasn't anybody identifiable who could be that certified service provider whom the suppliers of the computer could have recognized because of their own lack of training in the particular area. So I believe that although we are not fully satisfied that we don't have a fully qualified local authorized service provider, we have to move very quickly to get our people on board, the technicians and so on, give them the requisite support so that they can get the training and the certification which would give the suppliers the kind of comfort to allow them to perform the servicing to these laptops without voiding the warranties. Because at the end of the day, if you have persons who are not certified to provide the service, the warranties on the computers can be voided, and we don't want that at all. So I think that we have to speak local empowerment here, and I want to thank Johnny for that very important suggestion. We're moving in that direction. On the matter of the first form computers, in fact, I want to put into that mix as well the teachers' computers as well, because we have recognized that we cannot really expect teachers to do their very best in providing the requisite support and the exposure with the use of the computer if they themselves are not being given the tool at their disposal to work with. And so I want to say that we are placing the order for a batch of computers to arrive here within a few short weeks so that we can meet the demand and we can also satisfy the requests which have been made for the first farmers and the teachers to get their laptops. We recognize that we had to make some changes to the kind of hardware that we purchased. We are getting too many complaints about the laptops which are out there right now, and so we thought that rather than using what we have in stock to supply, we'd want to see how we can buy a more robust and much more up-to-date piece of hardware, and that is why we have taken this long to get to the supply of these computers to the students and to the teachers.
All right. It's just about 2:50, 10 minutes now before the hour of 3 o'clock. Let's go back, take some more of your calls. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just want to make a comment.
Go ahead.
Just how it looks to me like one man divided the Labour Party, and it wasn't Tim and Sam. It looks like just how he did that, he wants to keep the country divided. A vote for Tim and a vote for Sam is not a vote for Pam. It is a vote for truth and a vote for peace, a vote for development. So Labour people, Pam people, whoever you are, vote for Tim and vote for Sam. They are running independently, it seems, and if they so wish to join a unity platform, it will be a good thing because everyone on that platform will have a voice. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that with us, ma'am. Let's take another call. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Joni.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to Mr.
Nigel Carty. Yes.
Yes. My name is Alston William, and I'm calling to ask Nigel a question. If you think it is fair to see that the government is renting his property for the Commissioner of Police, and I work on that property and cannot get paid. That's my question. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. While the minister figures that out. Let's take this call. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
I have a question.
Go right ahead with your question.
First, my grandfather worked at the sugar cane for 55 years. When they closed down, that's when he went home. He got 2005. He's about 72. That is for Mr. Carty. Then again, with the computers, grade 4 children, they were coming home so complicated that you yourself as a parent need access to a computer. If you don't have it at home and they feel like the kids is too young to get a computer, maybe they need to select some of those computers into a classroom so the children them could have access to computers. For grade 4, I'm talking about. Then again, the Branty Welch School, the kitchen is in a mess. That they built a shed at the back so the lunch could share there. But still, the kids take the dishes back into the same kitchen. That is a mess. And also, the bathroom, especially for the boys, is in a mess. The headmaster says it's so messy that whatever germs the kids would pick up at school, they'll bring it home from the shoe. And if he ain't get some kind of attention, he might run away like the Bastia High bathroom because there's a plug or choke, something like that, in the boys' bathroom. That's what I wanted to say to the minister.
All right, thank you. Let's take another call quickly. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Juni Liburd station.
Yeah, Freedom FM. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, I am Joseph Hercules.
Yes, Hercules.
Yeah. Someone called me a while ago to tell me to listen to your station. So I heard Mr. Carty making a comment there about sugar workers. And he also called in my name saying, I did resign. I went on pension. I did not resign. I did not went on no pension. It's there who stopped me from work. Mr. Liburd.
Yes, sir.
Ask him if he have any document to prove what he's saying. And I don't want to comment now because a long story, Mr. Liburd. I'd be like to get on your station and to explain to you the whole matter at the sugar industry programming after the closure of the sugar industry. I have document to prove what I am saying. Mr. Carty misleading, and he shouldn't do it. He should not do it. Mr. Carty, you know me well, I know you well. And you shouldn't mislead in the country like that. That's why you go. I have the document them to prove, man. You think, talk about the 1961 agreement now? Well, you ain't talk about that. Mr. Liburd, I want to create a station, man.
All right. Well, you can give us a call.
What I am saying.
Yeah.
So I ain't going to take up much more of your time.
Right.
But I feel very much annoyed over Mr. Carty. Whole bunch of them.
All right. All right. Feel free to give us a call after 3 o'clock this afternoon, and we'll see how we can help you out, sir. Okay? All right. Thank you so much for sharing that information with us. Thank you so much, Mr. Hercules. Let's take another call quickly, and then we'll get Minister Carty to respond. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Mr. Liburd.
Good afternoon.
This is Teresa.
Teresa, go ahead.
Mr. Carty, this question is for you. When are you going to come and check me for the fruit?
Check what?
Check me for the seedlings.
The seedlings. Oh.
Checking my number to come and check to get the plants then. When are you going to come and check?
At Taylor's?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now that I'm in the new ministry, I can better organize for that and feel that I have more legitimacy in that area. So I'll check you out.
Okay, Teresa, thank you so much. Let's try another call quickly. Good afternoon. You're on the air. Okay. Mr. Carty, I think you had several issues and questions posed. Perhaps you can respond at this time.
Right. I want to start with Mr. Hercules because I just want to reiterate what I said before. Mr. Hercules was retired from the SSMC at the age of 72 years. Of course, he wanted to continue to work. The people felt that he had gotten to an age and a stage where he should be retired and they retired him. There's no discrepancy over that at all. I just want the public to understand that there's no discrepancy over that at all. He was 72 years at the time. He felt that he could have worked because he had the strength and so forth, and they retired him nonetheless. 72 years is a good age to have people retired, and that they did. In relation to the Bronte Welch, in fact, I want to make a larger statement in relation to our schools, because obviously we have some maintenance challenges, and the bathrooms seem to be at the center of the maintenance challenges that we have. We are being told, and we observe as well, that the bathrooms seem to be the Achilles heel of our school maintenance problems, because they are parts of the school that are used frequently by hundreds of students in the average school, and over the course of a term, even if you would have done significant repair and renovation to a bathroom, it falls into a state of disrepair by the end of the school term. We have invested tremendous amounts of money and time in servicing our bathrooms, but I must confess that it is a challenge to keep up in this way. And what we have done recently, therefore, to address the issues is to have Cabinet approve for the Ministry of Education its own maintenance team, because public works always have to be diverted in so many directions, having to deal with schools and hospitals and health centers, etc., police stations. And so we have said, we have made the clear case to the Cabinet that given that the schools are such a large number of buildings, primary schools, secondary schools, preschools, daycare centers, we would want to have our own in-house maintenance team, and that has been approved. And in addition to this, we are putting together a maintenance plan for all of our schools, making sure that dealing with bathrooms is at the very top of that. Windows and doors, desks, etc. All of these things, we now have to put together a concrete maintenance plan, because we have become much more sensitive about the wholesomeness of the environment in which we exist. The other matter has to do with the kitchen at the Bronte Welch Primary School. This is a project which should have been done under the BNTF project. It's taking long. I heard from Mr. D'Souza that there are all sorts of technical problems in relation to that. And so we are moving ahead with the repair and renovation of the kitchen as an independent project by the Ministry of Education, working together with the Public Works Department, and we will have that done. I think that the school has to manage the children in relation to where they put their dishes. That's a matter for school management, and I would want to appeal to the management of the school to ensure that children don't expose themselves to things which they ought not properly to expose themselves to. The first caller in the last set of questions is a gentleman by the name of Alston Williams, whom I have taken to court over matter, so I wouldn't want to make any comment in relation to our matter. But I would want to say to him and the public that I'm a young man who went to school, took my work seriously, in school, out of school. I've been able to make an investment. I was able to build a house. I am willing to rent it to any person who is willing to pay for the services which I'm providing. I will rent my house to any person in the country who wants to rent it.
All right, it's just about 3 o'clock. Time really, really flies. And I was just getting an overseas call here at the overseas line number. It's 305-515-3099, so that caller can call me back. I'll try and get that call up for Mr. Carty as well. We're going to take just 3 more calls and then wrap up. Let's start with this one. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Liburd.
Good afternoon.
I want to speak to you, right? Last week, your sister was on your program, and I felt very bad the way how she handled Mrs. Henry, because I know Mrs. Henry does be on all the stations and educating the people.
Well, Miss Henry has also said some non-complimentary things about the minister.
Right? But she as a minister, I think she's going to take it more, even better than the way how she had.
Oh, okay.
And I know you and Miss Henry to have you all one-on-one, right? But it doesn't mean nothing to you. But the way how she handled Miss Henry.
Okay, what's your question, caller?
My question now is to Mr. Carty now.
Yes.
If it was in the Virgin Islands, this thing couldn't happen, because people who work with HEF, and when HEF closed down, the amount of money that they get for the time they started to work with HEF until it closed down, They are millionaires.
Okay.
All three sugar workers in tickets and puppy, dog, all that thing you could call it. It's a shame of you all coming on the radio speaking about it.
All right. All right, thank you. Let's try another call here. Caller, overseas line, are you there? Hello?
Yes.
You're there?
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Where are you calling from, sir?
St. Thomas.
St. Thomas, go ahead.
I need to ask a question. If you go into city and you take a car and drive out with it without not paying, most likely you will be charged with something. To the Prime Minister, if you are charged facing a motion of no confidence, how can you set your trial?
How can you do what, sir?
How can he now turn around and set his trial?
Oh.
The motion of no
But-
confidence must be put on the table.
Uh-huh.
He cannot set his trial.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that with us. We're going to take a final call, and then we're going to get the wrap from Minister Carty. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Mr. Liburd. How are you?
I'm excellent. Yourself?
I'm very well. My name is Berlin One. I'm calling from Boys Village.
Verlin, go right ahead.
I didn't hear it for myself, so perhaps you could enlighten me. Somebody just called in about something about Brunty Primary School, and we built up a temporary kitchen, but the children are still stored. We are still storing the dishes in the kitchen, and the dishes could still be contaminated. Is that correct?
Comments along those lines were made.
Yes.
Well, nothing could be further from the truth, Mr. Liburd.
Okay.
The dishes hasn't been stored in the kitchen for months now. We usually pack the dishes in a container and store them in the library. Recently, the ministry has bought us 2 containers with covers, and the dishes are stored in the 2 containers, covered, and in the library still. So the people must get the facts before they go on the radio and spread rumors and then cause parents to get alarmed. I am not going to sit here and hear nobody spreading any rumors on Brunty Primary.
Okay.
We don't store any dishes in there. The most the dishes are done is washed in there. The lady cleans up the sink before she washes them. Then they are stored in a covered container in the library.
Okay.
Thank you. I just thought I'll call and clarify that.
All right. Thank you so much for the clarification, Verlin. We appreciate it. Okay. All right. I say I have one final call here, so let's do this. Good afternoon. You're on the air. Hello? Okay. All right. I think that concludes the call-in segment for today, and we'll ask Minister Carty to respond and wrap up his presentation for today. Minister Nigel Carty.
Thank you very much, Juni, and I want to say thanks for the opportunity you have given me to be with you and members of the listening public on this, one of the, if not the very most popular radio show, talk show in the entire Federation. And I just want to basically agree with Verlin that Verlin Warner, who is a very supportive employee of the Ministry of Education at the Brunty Primary School, and a very responsible parent. She's, in fact, I think, the public relations officer for the teachers group, the PTA for the Brunty Primary School. And this is what people need to do. People really need to practice responsibility, and we all have to share in that responsibility. In closing, Juni, I really want to say that I think that over the last several weeks, we have seen so much potential within the government for the agenda of the government to be properly executed. It is only dawning on us now that almost with the entire term, if not before, we have had persons within the organization who were bent on stymieing the progress of the organization and the government, and who were, in fact, setting the groundwork for their distancing themselves from the party to do their own thing with members of opposing parties. We are very clear in our own mind now. And so there is a renewed sense of purpose and unity within the government, with every person working together to get things done within the government. We have seen tremendous progress on all fronts, on projects for roads, for schools. All of these things are being done because clearly we are working at one purpose. We are working on the same agenda. We are singing from the same hymn sheet in the government, and that is why we are progressing at the rate with which we are progressing. I want to say that the disunity within the government has been perpetrated mainly by Dr. Harris, who has felt over time that he was due for certain promotions in the government which he didn't get. In fact, I can say to you here and now that Dr. Harris had been campaigning for quite some time for the position of Deputy Prime Minister. It was Sam Conda who said in a meeting very clearly that he was not going to tolerate his being superseded by anybody else in the cabinet apart from the Prime Minister. So Dr. Harris has been on this path to see to his own promotion for a very, very long time. And it was a negotiation over who would be Deputy Prime Minister that he agreed to accept on a motion put forward by the Honorable Sam Conda for him, Timothy Harris, to become Senior Minister. Because Harris decided that he was no longer going to sit aside as one who, of course, in his own mind, having potential to be a leader of the party and not be given the kind of promotion that he thought he should get within the party, well, certainly within the government. And so I believe that it has all come to the fore now that these matters have weighed heavily on all of them, and in the end, they have decided to do it their own way. I am certain in my own mind that what we've seen playing out is a power struggle. We have had people in the public would not know, but we have had many agonizing moments and meetings and retreats. We have invited professionals from overseas, Jamaica, within the region, United States, to speak with the cabinet to attempt to resolve a number of the issues which have arisen. And it has come very clear in, of course, a retreat which was held sometime in the course of last year. The gentleman who was the host, in fact one of the hosts, said that this is clearly a power struggle. People who feel that their moment has come, and so this is why we are here. So it's all well and good for people to go out almost acting as though they are saints, when in fact all along it has been part of their own ploy and plot to undermine the government. And I am certain that if Timothy Harris had been made Deputy Prime Minister, as he was hoping to be, this would not have happened, because he feels that his movement forward has been stymied and blocked. And so he has sought to find some other means to get the top spot in the government. Again, I want to say that there are persons, elements like Dwyer Astafan, former minister, whom I believe is of the view that he would want certain alliances within a government upon whom he can depend to get what he wants. Dwyer Astafan believes that he should be rich. He believes that he should be rich. And that is why when he left the government in 2008, he made certain demands. He asked for an insurance license. And he was asked to make the relevant application. He asked for certain contracts to do work that he ought to have done when he was in the government. And he asked for $50,000 up front. $50,000 up front to be able to work on contracts such like the one that he had gotten. But he quickly found out that the work that he had undertaken to do, he couldn't do because he didn't have the capacity. In fact, I was consulting with a friend of mine who is no longer here but was a senior counsel in the government as a lawyer, who told me that the labor code is one of the most complex labor codes, or codes, legal codes. And Mr. Astafan, not being trained in legal drafting, couldn't undertake the task. But of course, nobody could convince Dwyer himself until he undertook the task and found that he couldn't do it. And so I believe that a lot of these machinations that we see are attempts by persons who have some axe to grind, who have some gripe, who feel that they should position themselves with certain political parties and certain political persons so that when all is said and done, they can have their nest well feathered. This is what this is all about on the part of a lot of people.
All right. Minister Carty, I want to thank you so much. Just spare thought here, though. In any upcoming elections, are you going to be a candidate?
I am not a person to choose myself. I believe that we should wait until we are called.
I see.
We shouldn't appoint ourselves. And so I have always said to people that I am willing to do whatever I can do for the country firstly and for my organization, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. I believe that I have received tremendous support in the work that I do, and I believe that there are members of the public who see me as someone who can play a role, in a slightly different capacity for the party and for the country. And I thank them for the confidence that they have vested in me over these years that I've chosen to work in this way with the party and the government.
All right. Minister Nigel Carty, thank you so much for your time on Issues for today, and we look forward to sharing with you in the not-too-distant future. Thank you, sir.
Thanks again, Juni.